Welcome to another episode of The Practical Metaphysical Journey, the place where practical meets the paranormal, the mundane meets the metaphysical, and the spiritual meets the spooky. A place where we share the experiences of our journeys here on Earth. We encourage you to listen and see what resonates, because we're all different yet the same. We invite you to take a break with us, so unpack and stay a while. We're glad you stopped by for a visit. And now for part 2 of Good and Bad, two sides of the same coin. Another story of something that happened to me that is part, I think, goes along with this topic. So before I lived here, I was in a condo, which means, of course, I had people living around me,
Yep.
which was difficult at times. And my neighbor, the one neighbor that I had talked to this guy a few times. He was a nice person. We just, said hello and talk about the weather or whatever. There was one weekend where the music was so loud, and it was the bass, the really loud bass,
yep.
so everything just kind of was vibrating and stuff. And so, my first reaction is I went to the negative space and I got angry, and I was going to go over there and I was going to tell him what he was supposed to do and turn down that music. But I was in my evolution of getting to where I am today. I stopped. I got out of that space. I thought about it going, yeah, it's inconvenient. I don't like it. But he's not doing it to me.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't directed at me. It was what it was. So I left it alone. And a couple of days later, I saw him in the parking lot. And we were talking, and he said, without me saying anything about the music, he said to me, he says, "Oh, I just got new speakers. Can you hear my music?" And I said, "Yeah, unfortunately, yes, I hear the music. It is kind of loud." He said, "I'm so sorry. I'll turn it down."
Yeah, because his intention wasn't you. It was actually his thing. He was proud of his new speakers and wanted to hear them. And then you're just a byproduct.
Like you said before, Lisa, where the energy butting up against energy. If I had gone over there angry and told him to turn, who knows what would have happened with that situation?
Would have rocked apart. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard, and then it's hard to make everybody else see that point of view too and step into their negative space. But that's not what we're here for, and I guess everybody has to kind of find that on their own, maybe by setting the example.
Well, again, if a repeating pattern keeps showing up for you, who's the message for, perhaps?
Oh, that's so annoying. Dang it! I don't want to have that go on. No.
But just recognizing that if you're always complaining about the same thing, who's the common denominator?
Mm-hmm.
If it's happening, in different scenarios, who's the common denominator? And then, part of our podcast is giving people practical tips that they can use when they find themselves in situations that we're presenting in any show. Yeah. I will give you the first one is just clarifying the definitions of what you perceive as good and bad. Like just knowing that you're like, oh, I am being super judgmental. Maybe more for the bad, seems like that would be logical, than if something's good. But still, you're judging something as good. It's putting as much, what do I want to say, like constriction around it, because you're not open to anything even being better, right?
Yeah.
So if you're perceiving something that is good, well, that's all it can be, right? You've defined it again. But if you can be like, oh, what could be better than this? You're opening up to possibilities. So sometimes the good sticks us more than the bad. We don't think we're learning as much from the good, but there's a lot of growth available there if we're able to go that way with it.
Yeah, I agree with you in that looking at what you feel is good is just as important as understanding what you feel is bad. Mm-hmm. Again, because I go back to like the ego. Are you feeling that things are good because it's feeding your ego?
Mm-hmm.
And making you feel good, like you were saying before. Yeah, people want to feel good about things, but are you doing it because it's feeding your ego
and at the expense of others that you're you know what I mean? You got to be mindful of that too.
Because the other thing that I was thinking too, it's like, okay, am I empowering people by helping them because I feel good because I'm helping people all day long? Am I empowering this person or am I enabling that person? So,
Ouch.
yeah, I was thinking about that one in the car earlier today. I'm like, oh, I'm empowering this person. I'm like, you're great. You are fantastic. This is exactly what you should do. Keep doing this if it makes you happy. Well, what if and it's a long range type of thing, but keep doing drugs, keep doing whatever, keep doing whatever, keep, whatever, keep exercising or keep dieting. Maybe they shouldn't be. So and now have I just fed into somebody's eating disorder or body image, something or other, So it's like not substituting my own judgment for somebody else's and calling what they're doing good or bad. But, because we always want to feel like we're helping people and, oh, I did such a good thing by helping them. Well, did you? And it's okay to sit in the good place for a while too. I think as much as we need to pay attention to when we're feeling bad and seeing what that lesson is bringing, it's okay to sit in that good space. Sometimes you just need to sit in the good, nurture, nourish, whatever it is. But if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're going to get bored with that good situation. You need to branch out, go for good, better, best, whatever. But I think, like you were saying, step out of it, look at where you are. Who are you? Where are you? And constantly reassess.
And do you want it to change?
Right.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
can you acknowledge, like, you know what? This is not working for me.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And if it isn't working, if you have the noisy neighbor and all that stuff, maybe it is the best thing if you move, Who knows what's waiting for you out there? You just are going to make things worse. Are you going to make things better? Or are you just going to step somewhere new? So but it's a lot to think of.
It is, yeah. When I was putting this outline together, as I was getting into it and typing some of this up, I was getting kind of excited about it because to me this is a topic that, for me, has meant great changes in my life, and that, like I said, I'm happier because I understand my definition of this stuff better than I used to. And tie it into some of the stuff that you're saying. I think it's understanding yourself better, being more self-aware, understanding what your boundaries are.
Yeah.
And I know for me, one of those boundaries that I set up is free will. If you don't allow me to make my own choice, you've crossed a boundary for me. That to me now is the definition of what's bad, and I'm going to respond to that. But in the same token, thinking about outward of that is, I think what's bad, if I'm looking at what other people are doing, is if I see them taking away other people's free will, not respecting it.
Right. Absolutely.
But in that respect, are you saying you'd step in, or you're just observing it and you're just realizing
in
like
those
that's
cases,
happening?
if you're, I think if you're crossing that boundary for other people, based on the severity, I may step in, and come to the extreme, like murder.
Yeah.
Yes, if you do that, to me, that's a bad thing because you've now taken away that person's choice to do whatever with their life. You've got to step in those cases. I think in that you're kind of crossing.
To see someone harming somebody, then absolutely, it's just it's going to be a call to action one way or another. Whether I'm stepping in and trying to fight the fight for them, which I'm going to lose, I'm weak. But or do I make a call to put an end to that? It doesn't have to be the grand, put on the cape and the tights and kick some butt. You step in and do whatever. Or, for instance, too, if you see somebody harming themselves, that's dicey too, because then it comes into play, why are they doing it and that type of thing. But, there's a lot, and I think it's going to be different for every person, just like I think having boundaries and setting boundaries is different for different people too.
Yeah.
You two, with my comfort level with you both and our friendship and all, the boundaries are probably far fewer then somebody outside could step in or say or do things or have different, demeanors with me,
I find it harder to set boundaries with people I'm familiar with, though, like family and close friends. That grace word comes in with myself and with others, and then to the point of, okay, is this a detriment? Have I let this go too far? Now, how do I create a boundary? I've let this go on so long. How am I going to create a boundary here?
I think that plays into loss too. What am I going to lose? What is it that I had that I feel good with my family that now I've let them walk over me, and I don't like this, but for the sake of being in this family unit or having this relationship, I'll keep putting up with, because if I stop, that means I might not be a part of this. And so, all of that. Yeah. And I think we all deal with that all the time, even in workplace situations with family. Yeah. Friendships, I think that's big.
Yeah, like it's easy to make a boundary with someone you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? That's easy. But once you are in relationship with someone for any amount of time, or they're a family member, it's difficult. It's difficult. And I'll play devil's advocate going back to your murder situation, because I immediately went to like a spiritual level, like there might be some contract there,
Right.
Now,
Right.
Obviously, if it was happening in real life, I would have to do something.
Dang.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, yeah, it does. It wraps us back to it. I forgot you said that in the beginning.
It drove me crazy reading that book, because nothing was really off limits, because it was all a learning experience, and we're here on this planet to learn, and God experiences what's out there through each of us doing this type of thing. And I'm like, what's a flippin' free-for-all out there?
Yeah, and what if it's not right or wrong? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what on a spiritual level, what if it's not right or wrong?
Right.
But we've put it in the physical, and we've made it concrete in our physical.
Yeah, you're right. Because another way that I look at it, because I struggle with the same kind of thought, in that, something else that I think for myself when I look at somebody doing something and I think it's bad, I do believe that I've had multiple lives.
Right.
I think we all do, and we progress as we go through, and we learn lessons as we go through that. I think in this current episode that I'm going through, I feel like I'm a good person, and I'm learning, but my past lives, I probably wasn't always
Right.
the person I am now. I've had to learn those lessons in those other lives. So, flip that to today. If somebody's doing something and I say that's bad, am I stopping, or am I not allowing them to learn their lesson today? That's part of their journey.
Exactly.
It's like going back in time and changing a situation,
Yes.
and then the whole future changes. Is that good or is it bad? You may save a life, but how many lives may be taken, or maybe that life turns out to be horrible or whatever, or maybe you just postponed it. It's just
I know. Is intervening your path for this lifetime? Is it your place to intervene?
Yeah.
Or is it your place to be like, oh, the only way they're going to learn? Now, and again, we go back to murder. I couldn't stand there and just watch somebody murder someone. I just couldn't do that. But thinking of other kind of scenarios.
right.
Is it my place to intervene, or, is it my place to stop this? Sometimes it is better. And then there's, like you were saying, codependency. All of that starts to come in as a way of like, I don't know how to navigate this. Now I'm paralyzed. I don't know how to navigate.
Right, there you go. Then if I think too, we need that sense of good and bad, because otherwise, what direction do we go? So,
like you said, is it that
you're
free for all?
stuck. Yeah, is it that free for all? I'm going to run to this, that, or do you end up paralyzed and doing nothing? Because you don't know what's good, what's bad, what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and how to live your life or not live your life, and
Or make a decision.
Yeah.
You
Are you
lose
stuck?
that ability to make a decision.
Right, exactly.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. Well, look at patients with dementia. They have no sense of good and bad, or up or down, or right or wrong, or whatever. They're just kind of existing to us that's bad. Maybe in their world, they're okay. Maybe they're good.
Right, they're okay, but it's like, what lesson is it for me then? If I'm the conscious one that's still like having questions around things,
Absolutely.
what is the lesson in this for me?
I don't.
Again, open up the question box, stay in the opportunity and possibility realm of what is going on here. Like you said, what can I learn from this? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, that's going to show up on the recording.
Maybe.
My cat is.
That's
talking,
okay.
so-
She's
got a cute
speaking.
little-
She's putting in her 2 cents. It's good to
Yes.
be me, is what she's saying.
She's like, are you triggered? Are you triggered?
There you go. There you go. We'll give you all the grace
Are
in
you
the
triggered
world, little Macy. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
when you really start questioning good and bad, I think you can. You can lock your brain right up. Well, okay, someone's getting murdered. Well, maybe they're getting murdered because they did something horrible too. So,
But to me, that's kind of the key point to this discussion is realize that if you think you know good and bad and you judge everything going on based on your definitions,
yeah, yeah,
you're going to have a difficult time.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to, like you said, you got to open up that definition, be aware of who you are and what your boundaries, what's good and bad for you, but be open to the discussion.
yeah. Widen your view and open your perspective. See it from that perspective instead of perception, which is what you've learned, what's you've ingrained, what you've taken to heart, your beliefs, your whatever, and just
How you've seen other people in that
Yeah.
situation react, and you say, "Oh yeah, that's the way," because that's the way I've always seen it. Sometimes you have to change.
a situation we see. I've seen it a lot in my workplace, and so the word perception is a trigger to me. The intention was, well, it doesn't matter because my perception is. Now that you are
There's
at
no
a
grace there at all.
stalemate,
There's no-
that is it. Like when I hear you used a tone. Well, I didn't mean to use a tone. Well, my perception is you used a tone on me. I didn't use it. Now I'm using a tone. So, okay, now we've just created this situation, and neither one of us is right, and neither one of us is wrong. And then you're
It
stuck.
is what it is.
It is what it is. Where do you go from there? And it's like, well, you're bad. Well, you're not. I'm good. You're bad. I'm good. Ugh.
So we talked about, being more self-aware is one of the ways that you can, improve and evolve, in how you judge or stop judging,
Right.
situations as good and bad. What other advice or things have worked for you in creating where you are today as far as looking at what's good and evil or good and bad?
One way for me is to stop in the moment and put myself in their shoes and try to see the world through their shoes, because again, I don't know what they've experienced. I mean, and a lot of times it's reflection later. I'll be honest about that. But if I can in the moment, I will stop and think about what my end of it was,
Yeah.
and then evaluate what their reaction was, or my reaction to either way it's going, and just try to see it through their eyes. Just take a moment, like you said. That's kind of like the grace thing. Is have some grace, and like, is there some way I could have changed this? Is there some way I could have came at this a different way? But I mean, it's got to be an instantaneous type conversation I'm having in my head.
Yeah, I think with me, I have to. I think I'm going back to a couple of work situations and things like that where things aren't maybe working out the way I want. And I'm like, okay, what does this matter in the scheme of things? That's the phrase I have to use. And then, you know what? I don't think a single thing past that. I really do. I was like, does this really matter in the big scheme of things? I'm not going to sit there and try to interpret what the scheme of things should be because I don't know. But sometimes if I just say that, then or I'll just say, you know what? I don't have time for this. And then just kind of kick back. So it's not I'm not really giving myself a learning lesson out of this. I'm not pursuing, like putting myself in their shoes or anything, but it's just a way of putting on brakes for me. And sometimes I just need to put on the brake and not think so much, because I can think all day about how somebody used a tone or said something in a certain way and tell that story for months and whatever. And what did it mean? I've lived my life past that. So it's like sometimes it's just a matter of putting the brakes on and then moving on to the next thing, the next person that's saying something, or just kind of put the brakes on and look around. Because I know the lesson's going to come.
But even the brakes is an action.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's,
Like,
it's a
that's
hard
huge.
stop.
Right,
Yeah, it's a
right.
hard stop.
Well, and it goes back to what we were talking about before, of realizing we're part of a much bigger picture.
Yes.
So like you said, what in the grand scheme of things, what does this matter? Yeah.
Right.
If you're millions of light years away looking at Earth and that situation happens.
Exactly.
Can you even see it?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
If an alien saw you get that dented can, they're going to be like, wow, there must be something horrible wrong with dented cans. Or they're going to be like, what the hell? I'm just trying to keep my ship in the air. I'm just worried about getting stuck in a chamber somewhere in New Mexico. So
We solved dented cans.
there we
light
go.
years ago.
Yeah, it's like there's got to be bigger problems than this in the world, and I don't want them. So it's like, okay, I'll take my little problems, my little triggers, my little opportunities. If somebody gave me their bag of problems, I probably couldn't shoulder it. So I'll keep my own little bag of problems.
Well, I remember doing a show years ago. It was the one, got to remember the title correctly. Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten.
Yes.
And think back, how many times as a kid were you upset about something and you were told, okay, sit, count to 3 or count to 10. It's that idea of step back,
Yeah.
give yourself a moment, put the brakes on, and then react to a situation if you need to.
Yeah, I think so, because I really don't think, too, that people are given the time to have those moments. We're on a time clock at work where, yeah, we may screw around on some of that time, but the focus is, all right, from this time to this time, you work at a pace. You have your outside activities at a pace, whatever it is. And unless we take time, like we do for meditation and all, it's like, okay, and then even there's times like, all right, what do I want to meditate on now? All right, if I'm not doing a guided meditation, how about just going with the inner stillness? And it's having that something to do, whether it's like coming from productivity or whatever it is. I think we get out of practice of doing that.
Would you say that those times where you do say meditate and just enjoy the stillness, you're giving yourself grace?
Yeah, once I do that, but then again, I'm also judging it, saying, oh man, I wasn't as still as I should have been. I kept thinking about this and this, and it's like, I didn't even do that right. So yeah, like the meditation time that we have on Mondays, that's my time out. That's my grace period, that once a week where I don't have to perform for somebody else. And I think that's it too. As kids, people say, take a break, go to have nap time, have this or that. We don't have that now. I don't want to parent myself. I'd love to have somebody say, you need to take time to go sit down and rest or do whatever.
I never gave up nap time.
There you go. There you go.
I still take naps.
Yeah. I'm so used to just being in the mode of doing. And my dad said to me one time, and you're a human being, not a human doing. And it was just funny because he'd have these moments of insight from the guy who was doing all the time. So that when he'd spout these little words of wisdom that we all know, it's like, oh yeah. But and because the last thing I want someone to say is calm down. And so, but it's like kind of not giving ourselves permission, going.
Because there's always some expectation that we place on ourselves.
Yes.
So when you can go into a space of no expectation, sometimes you don't know what to do at that time, right?
It's true. No expectation, no judgment.
Yeah.
That no good or bad.
Right.
Go into that ether in between.
And I think those times are when you do become more self-aware.
Right.
Of course,
And
yeah.
that's where people, I think, have trouble.
Right.
Because I find as I talk to people, and I talk about things like meditation, I can't do that because I can't shut my mind off. And I think they're scared to start looking inward.
Sure, absolutely.
Because it is a whole lot easier to look outward and make the judgments.
Yeah.
Well, they say you're pointing your
Yeah.
finger, but you got 3 coming back at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's always easier to talk about what's happening over there.
And we're always looking outward, and I think part of that comes from a self-protection place too. We got to know what's going on around us at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the extreme. I think that probably as society's moved forward and we're aware of more perceived dangers and things like that, and you got to watch out for this and watch out for that, and you're always looking for the next thing that's going to happen so you can tell whether it's good or bad for you, then it takes away from any inner peace that we're going to have and looking inward. And also, if somebody says, you know what, I'm going to start becoming self-aware, there's an action word right there. Now I've got to do some work to become self-aware instead of just having a moment and being, oh, that was kind of cool. It's just constant working.
What come up for me when you're just saying that is finding a place of, like, being neutral doesn't mean you don't care.
Right.
Right? So we don't want to get complacent or whatever that looks like, or that we are not that we're frozen with because we can't act because we're frozen, but because we don't want to act. It's just there's a difference between observing, right, and then just like you don't care. I remember just a conversation that I had with my husband once, and he was all worked up about something, and I was just like listening, and he's like, why doesn't this bother you? And I'm like, no, like it's there, it was somebody else. He was, saying like they needed to course correct or whatever, and I was like, doesn't affect me. And he's like, we should have a conversation. I'm like, no, I really don't think we should.
I'm good.
And he's like, don't you care? Like he was afraid they were, something bad was going to happen. I was like, it's not that I don't care, but going back to what I was saying spiritually, like I don't think it's my place to step in. I'm not the one to teach this lesson for them. I need to just be the observer in it. As hard as that is, as hard as you might love someone, sometimes you just have to be the observer, because you could, kind of change some trajectories if you don't.
It's funny because the word teach is such an action word, and it's exhausting because that puts you in the place of being over somebody else. But like the word learn, I love that word. I think that too keeps some people being perpetual students all the time. It's nice to learn and have somebody else directing that action towards you, because then you get to sit in a place where you don't have to necessarily do anything but intake.
It could be very humbling.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
someone that feels like they always have to be the one that's, knowing the other.
Yeah.
Become comfortable with admitting you don't know it all.
Right.
I find that, like at work, that's a big thing where I find there's issues. It's many times people are so scared to say, I don't know how to do that.
Sure.
Can you show me or whatever?
Absolutely.
And it creates issues. So, realize you're part of that bigger picture. There's this entire universe out there. You can't know it all.
No. And sometimes it's okay to sit in the uncomfortable moment. Sit in the uncomfortable silence.
Yeah.
Which is hard too. I have a friend who says that all the time. It's like, yeah, well, that's, her husband was giving her a hard time and he's all mad about it. And he's like, I'm not comfortable with this. She goes, well, learn to sit in the uncomfortable feeling. And it's like, yeah, maybe you'll learn something. And it's like, and that's their trigger back and forth. But it's hysterical because I've said that once in a while. I said, well, you know what, I'm uncomfortable with this, but they're not going to change what they're doing. So I guess I just get to sit in the uncomfortable feeling. Then I'm like, oh, it's really not that bad. All right, I got something from it. Now I can move on. It was me. So
That kind of leads me to what the bottom couple things you had written down, David, is how do you approach life when something good happens or bad happens? How do you approach it? And I'll just give you a quick, again, an access consciousness phrase that we use is, how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
So no matter whether it's good or bad, however we're perceiving it, if we just say, how does it get any better than this? it's opening the possibility door, right? Because anything could happen then. So if something bad happens, how's it going to be better than this? You're shifting it to the good. If something good happens, how's it going to be better than this? It's even better. So it's just always a possibility. It's not taking you back into to a finite place.
Yeah, I like that. That is
That is really good.
You can change it however you want, but just that's how we say it there. But you can always change that to something that resonates with you. But how does it get any better than this?
Yeah.
What else is possible?
Yeah. That does, because that kind of puts the information out to the universe. Well, we'll show you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
Someone was like, well, this or something better.
Exactly.
When I'm asking for or praying about something or concentrating on something, but I mean, there goes that. The phone's gonna die next. It's on 1%, but we still have battery on the other. I mean, me, when something good happens or something bad happens, you've all met me. I tell the world everything. But that's just my way of getting everything out there. I share the good stuff, hoping that resonates with people. If I share the bad stuff, I'm pretty guaranteed that someone's going to pull me up short. I have that kind of support system where it's like, I don't expect you guys to say, oh my God, that's horrible. Say, yeah, well, it could have been worse. And because you guys have both done that to me times, yeah, it could have been worse. This could have happened. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And then we laugh about it because it's not a matter of, well, you did this and this is blah, blah, blah. And, being in the hospital, well, maybe if you ate right, your cholesterol wouldn't be high. And maybe if you got off your ass and exercise, nobody says it. You're like, all right, well, you live. So, yeah.
No, that's all your thing. But did you die?
But that is always like, but did anybody die? Okay, we got this big problem going on, but did anybody die? Okay, we can come back from that. Then we're good. We're in a good starting point. Yes, we at least have that. Exactly.
And sometimes there's not something to fix. A lot of times we get all worked up about something.
Yeah.
And there's not anything to be fixed there. I know we're going back to the it is what it is, but
it's true. It's like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen with that. Yeah. Leave it up to something bigger than
along that lines, I go to my story of the wind chimes.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I did not like wind chimes. I found them to be very annoying. And now I have two. Because I got to a point where
the tones that fit.
The tones that fit, but then also stopped looking at them as something bad. They are what they are.
They're not out to get you.
It was simply how I looked at them. And that's an inanimate object. It's not even a living being, and I'm judging something as being bad.
Yep.
Stop. And now I enjoy them.
Yeah. You shifted your perspective. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing because we have options. We're not stuck. We're not in the bottom of a hole. And even if we were, I might enjoy the peace of quiet. But yeah.
And it all, I know probably as we're talking about this and people are listening, we make it sound easy to just shift your perception. Like I said in the beginning, I don't do it all this way perfectly every time.
Mm-hmm.
I still get triggered. Driving for me is one of those.
I was thinking that.
I'm horrible when I'm behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just but also then come to the realization that you have the ability to change a lot of these situations. Yes, there's going to be certain situations, if we wanted to define every possibility, where people are stuck with something or whatever. But for the most part, I think you have the power to.
And if you don't do it yourself, you have the ability, like you said, to find somebody to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's help out there for every situation anybody can ever get into. Some of them might be harder to track down than others depending on the situation, but there's resources out there for all sorts of things. So, I mean, with all the issues I was going through with work and feeling put upon in one of my previous positions and all that, I finally decided to talk to somebody else who was able to help me shift my perspective on things and also pointed out too, well, you're doing this to yourself there. I don't see you're telling me all these stories about things that are happening to you at work, but it sounds to me like they're happening to everybody, not just you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm the one that matters. Well, how about if you thought of it this way? And it's like, oh, fine. And there's help out there. There are counselors, friends, family, somebody to. It's just a matter of being open to hearing that too.
Yeah.
And life does get better, I think, when you do. It's got to change at any rate, one way or another. A pendulum doesn't swing at the same speed, the same length all the time.
Yeah, well, like when the story where I said about my job, I mean, that proved to me, absolutely, I can change the way things
Right.
are, or how I'm perceiving them to be.
Right.
Yeah, and the things were probably still the same.
Right.
Right? Everything
It was, yeah.
but it was you that changed. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah.
So, any closing words, piece of advice?
It is what it is.
Whether you like
Sit
it
with
or
the
not.
uncomfortable feeling and shift your perspective.
And I'll say it again. How does it get any better than this?
There you go.
What else is possible?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So thank you for listening. Again, we hope you enjoyed this discussion. I think this is one of those, I think the concept of this is going to weave through a lot of the future podcasts that we put together.
Yeah.
Even the discussions of what we did in the previous podcast on ghosts and spirits, I'm sure people think there's good and there's bad. And so, it's this, to me, was just a topic important to get out in the beginning. And really realize and dive into it to take a look at or realize that it's just, you can't define it.
Yeah. I think there's just things in life that you can't define. You just work. You work with the best that you've got. You do the best you can with what you've got, and if it's not working for you, look for the something better.
Set your boundaries.
Absolutely.
And us three didn't agree on everything. And that's fine.
All other drivers but me are idiots.
Thank you for stopping by and listening to The Practical Metaphysical Journey in the episode on good and bad. Thank you, and please let us know if you have any comments or suggestions for future topics. Just drop them in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and make it a great day.